Hello and welcome to another edition of PAC Check-ins. I'm your host, Sean Davido, and today I'm joined by Erica McNamara. Erica is the Public Safety Communications Manager for Suncomm, and Suncomm is our 911 dispatch center. Thank you for joining me today, Erica.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you are fairly new to Yakima and fairly new to the position at Suncomm. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience.
Sure. So I've been here about 7 months now. Originally, I'm from California, up near Lake Tahoe, and that's where I began my career in public safety. I initially started at the California Highway Patrol, which is a huge agency in California with thousands of officers and hundreds of dispatchers. And I started there as a call taker and a dispatcher. And then I promoted into the Placer County Sheriff's Office and was there for about 10 years. And in that role, I had many roles actually. I started as a call taker and dispatcher there, and worked my way up and began running our training program and consulting for the state of California on training matters. And what that means is I would help other students get through and create their training programs for their own agencies. And then I would also go out and audit classes for both sworn as well as dispatchers to make sure that we met state requirements and that the curriculum was getting across to the students. And so I was there for about 10 years in a supervisory capacity. And then we decided to move up to Washington. My other half is originally from here, and this job came open and we applied, or I applied, I should say. And lo and behold, here I am. So I've been here about 7 months now and really enjoying it so far.
Wonderful. So you have some ties to the community.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about what is Suncomm and what services your agency provides for us.
Sure. So Suncom is the 911 dispatch center for Yakima County. And what that means is we take all of the 911 calls countywide, no matter whose jurisdiction they're in, and we determine what help they need and who they need to go to. So for example, if you dial 911 and you live in Selah is dispatched by the sheriff's office. And so we would get your initial information. And what that means is your location, your name, and a brief description of what you're calling about, and then transfer you over to the sheriff's office. So really kind of, I think of us as like a triage center. We determine the priority of the calls, what types of calls, and who you need to go to, whether that's law enforcement, fire, or medical. And the other component of that is we also dispatch for Yakima PD and fire, as well as Union Gap Police Department.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the team. I had the pleasure of spending some time in there. I didn't know what dispatch was all about and how close of a relationship everybody has to have. Can you talk a little bit about why did you decide to become a telecommunicator, and what does it take to be a good telecommunicator?
Sure. So being a telecommunicator was not initially part of my plan. I have a bachelor's degree in communications and a bachelor's degree in Spanish. And initially I was in marketing and HR. And I think for many people in 2008, when the economy crashed, I was left looking for a different avenue. And someone told me that they thought I would be a great telecommunicator. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. I'll see how it goes. And here I am 13 years later. It was something that I don't know that I'd ever considered, but it was a very good fit. And so I think there's a couple things that make people very good telecommunicators. One is the ability to work very cohesively as a team. There's kind of this perception that there's one person that takes the call, dispatches it, and they handle it from start to finish. And that really is not how it works at all. We have a call taker who's taking the initial call. Often, depending on the severity of the call, there's other call takers that are helping map that person or help with additional data. And then we have the dispatchers that are dispatching the units, whether that's law enforcement or fire, and doing a lot of research. So they might research an address or the people that are associated with the house. They might stage medical. They might need additional resources like a mental health professional. And so there's a lot of collaboration that goes into a single call, and it's not just written. There's a lot of talking, and I'm sure that's something you notice throughout the day. There's a lot of chatter back and forth, and they all seem to know what the other one's talking about, even though they don't really have to very explicitly explain what's happening, because they all have a good pulse on what is happening in the comm center and within each individual call. So I would
Right.
say teamwork is a huge component.
Just even when I was in there, I remember one call and the two call takers got a call at almost the exact same time, and it was like they were mimicking each other. I thought they were on the same call and one was following the other one. It was a very interesting, like I say, just that teamwork and how they talk across the room to each other, and they know almost what the other person's thinking. So it is that type of a relationship in that environment.
And I think, multitasking, of course, is what most
Right.
people think of with a telecommunicator. But really, it's so true because they have between 6 and 7 monitors. They have several calls working simultaneously. They have to have the ability to triage those calls and determine what's most important, put people on hold, handle an issue, and move on. And frequently, the things that happen, we train for a lot of things, but you can't train for everything. And so they have to have the expertise to be able to know what to do in any situation, whether we trained for it or not.
Now let's talk about some of those situations. There are times when, like I talked to some of your staff, and some things it's an emergency to the person on the other end no matter what. But there are certain times when it is not an emergency. When should people call 911 and when shouldn't people call 911?
That is a great question. So obviously, when you see someone in danger, their life is in danger, that is obviously a time you would call. So that would be a fire, if there was some sort of violent crime happening, a theft, something like that. Those are times we want you to call. And if you see something that you think is odd, we also want you to call because that often we can send someone to do an area check for that. The things we don't want you to call 911 for are things that happened several days ago. Yes, you need a report, absolutely, but there's other avenues for that. You can go online and make those reports or call the police department directly. Questions about what to do, that wouldn't be appropriate for 911. And really kind of those low level things that, yes, to you, they seem like an emergency, but perhaps they're not. And that might be your neighbor's dog is barking. You don't like the noise that your neighbors, they're having a barbecue or something like that. Those are kind of the things that we want people to use different resources for because we take about 250,000 911 calls a year. And about 10% of those are accidental dials or what we call pocket dials. And so we really want to make sure we're keeping those lines open for people who truly have an emergency.
Right. I was talking to some of your staff and smartwatches. I've called a couple times. My smartwatch tends to call 911, and
Yes.
I've actually had to answer and say, it's my watch calling you. In those situations, what should people do? If they accidentally call 911, what should people do?
Well, let me tell you, it happens way more than people think. I actually had many years ago a firefighter I worked with who was on duty, who called while he was on duty and was shocked that we were calling him back because he hit his watch as well. And so it's not a huge deal. People get really concerned that they accidentally call, and we appreciate that because they care. But all you have to do is stay on the line and just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, it was an accident," and we just need to confirm that, and we can close the call out. Often, what happens is people kind of panic a little bit, like, "Oh my gosh, I called 911." And so they hang up immediately. And what that means is we have to call you back to make sure that you're okay. And if you don't answer, then we send you a text message. So we have several steps that happen to make sure that people are there's no emergency. So if you just stay on the line, it's just a quick close out of a call and you can go on your day.
Wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about the vision for Suncom. Where are you guys at now? Technology changes all the time. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Technology in the 12, 13 years I've been in this industry has changed immensely, and it continues to change, I feel, at a faster rate. And so currently right now, our staffing levels are actually fairly solid. We have 5 vacancies across the state and the United States. Really, it's difficult to fill this position for a variety of reasons. People don't like shift work, or it's a more difficult job than they anticipated, but we're doing relatively well with that. So my vision for Suncom is to make sure that we have those staffing levels consistently. And the reason why is it's not it's not just about making sure that we have adequate staffing, but when we do, our staff is more rested. They're able to provide better service. We have more people available and working. And so people aren't waiting so long to get their 911 calls answered. And so it really is a big picture that the staffing benefits both the staff, but it really benefits the community, and that you're getting a dispatcher who isn't working significant amount of overtime. They're not exhausted. They're able to get some of that downtime. And we have the staffing to have extra people on so that people perhaps when they call in, they can get a few extra minutes of explanation, where right now, often we have to take your basic information and answer the next 911 call. So my vision for that is really customer service. Staffing equates to customer service. Go ahead,
Now,
Reagan.
let's talk about, there may be some openings. You said you have 5 vacancies. There are people are interested in being a telecommunicator. They could apply at Suncom, correct? Correct.
So right now we have 5 people in training, which is phenomenal. Our training program is about a year long. And so we start off with an academy for about 6 weeks. And that gives you the foundational knowledge of geography, our CAD system, our type codes, what kind of questions you would ask. And then you're put on the floor with a trainer to do your on-the-floor one-on-one training. And once you complete that for call taking, you complete an academy for both police and fire, and you go back out on the floor and finish your training. And so it takes about anywhere between 9 months and a year, depending on the person. And to apply, we're going to open up here probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll open up a position. And so our background process is not quite as rigorous as the police department, but we do have some similar components in that you'd have to do a background check. There's also a psychological evaluation as well as a polygraph. So just the application and suitability process takes probably anywhere from 2 to 3 months. It's definitely a little bit longer than the average job.
Right. And it takes a certain person. I mean, you do deal with people in crisis. So the job isn't necessarily, excuse me, for everybody, but it's worth, if you feel like you have the skills, they should contact you guys.
Absolutely. And you can also, we invite people to come and do a sit-in where they can come sit with a call taker and a dispatcher and kind of listen to what goes on and get a better feel for what the job entails. And often we find that people either get really excited about it and decide that that's the job for them, or they think, well, this isn't necessarily what I thought it was going to be, and I'm going to look elsewhere. And so for us, that's a great tool for people to use to determine whether this is a job they want before they take those steps in doing such a rigorous application process.
Now let's talk about just general information. If people just want to find out more about Suncom and what Suncom does, are there opportunities for that? How can people find out about your organization?
So of course you can contact me. We also have a public education coordinator, Belen Lopez, and she does a lot of presentations about what 911 is, what Suncom is, and she can tailor that to kindergartners, or we can go out and do HOA meetings just to give a better idea as to what we do and how we do it and what the whole process is. And then of course you can check out our website. But really we try to engage with the public, and Belen is great. And she does a wonderful job meeting with the public and providing age appropriate presentations, whether that's for little ones or adults.
Right. And I know you guys also do some social media. You have Facebook and some other social media out there, so people can look for and find you and follow Suncom.
And I would encourage people to do that because we often post information about incidents we're working or technology that we use. For example, the Alert Yakima is the mass notification system that we utilize here. And we're really, really trying to encourage people to sign up for that. And the reason why is during evacuations or windstorms or anything that's very significant, that is how we push out notifications. And so unfortunately, with cell phones, if you don't have a landline, you have to sign up for it. And so we're really encouraging people to do that. And we push that information out on our social media.
Let's talk about anything else you want to talk about. We've talked about a lot of stuff today, Erica. Is there anything else that we need to put out there about Suncom and what you guys do?
I would say that the county has some really phenomenal people that answer their 911 calls, and they should be really proud of the work that our team does. They work really hard. They work a lot of hours. They train a lot to make sure that the citizens are getting the best service they can. Starting on the 10th is actually Telecommunicators Week, which is the week that we celebrate dispatchers and telecommunicators and call takers and everything that they do in being a part of the first responder team.
I want to thank you again for coming and sharing this information on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank you all for joining us today.